Hello, welcome everybody. We're so happy that you are here. We're gonna give everybody just a moment as you're logging in to get settled and have everybody get into the webinar. So hang out. We're so happy you're here, and we'll get started in just a moment. All right, I already see people in the chat introducing themselves. I love that. Thank you so much for getting into it already. I love this community. So beautiful. So I'm Meredith, and I am from ThinkHuman, CEO of ThinkHuman. And thank you so much for joining this conversation. I am so excited to get to kick off this beautiful conversation we have today. We have incredible leaders from the Black community and part of our community who are going to be sharing their stories and taking your questions, digging into real conversations about Blackness. And with everything that has been happening in our world at this time, it felt really important for us to not only come together as a community, but to pass the mic to share pass the mic to Black leaders to share their stories and to celebrate Blackness. So as we're getting situated and getting ready to get started, I see many of you are already introducing yourselves. Please do get into the chat. This is not like television. We are a community. We want to hear from everybody here. Please share your name as well as where you're coming in from. So if you haven't already shared your name, do that. Share where you're dialing in from. I see people from far and wide, all over the US, beyond, outside the country. Really incredible watching this list spanning the globe. And we're so happy that you're here. And I personally am so moved that you're here. So before we keep going, would love to also hear in the chat, just as a tone setter, what are you present to when you think about Black stories and celebrating Blackness? So, no, it's a big question to start your morning with, but that's what we're here for. So if you would put that into the chat, if you would be so bold, what do you think about when you think about Black stories and celebrating Blackness? Just watching the chat. And if you don't know how to get into the chat, for those of you that are like, what is she talking about? If you move your mouse around on the screen, you should see at the bottom of your screen a little chat bubble. You click on it, and it'll bring up a window on the right side for you to share. And yes, strength, resilience, empowerment, love, appreciation, pride, so beautiful, excellence, indomitable spirit. So keep your replies coming as we get ready to get started. And let me quickly introduce the partners who are hosts of this webinar. As I said, I'm from ThinkHuman. We're a leadership development and manager training company that focus on creating company culture transformation through personal growth and individual development. So we create equitable workspaces where people are thriving and all human beings are respected. And our partner 15.5, our incredible partner 15.5, who we love, is a continuous performance management platform that helps employees grow and develop with a tech platform that enables easy productive conversations. So you should see now, hopefully, a poll come up on your screen. And if you want to hear from either of us, ThinkHuman or 15.5, you can put whatever you want in there. And as you're doing that, I now have the incredible privilege of introducing James Russo, who is not only a panelist as part of this conversation, also a part of the ThinkHuman team. And James, I'm gonna turn it over to you to share some spoken word.
Thank you so much, Meredith, first for creating the space and the opportunity. Thank you. When people don't believe they can achieve, their very desire can go into a state of suspension. As a young manager, I was taught to coach performance on the basis of skill or will, but desire was never even mentioned. Desire fuels will, and without fuel, as we know, things come to a stop. And desire is first created and nurtured in the home. But what happens when that home is dethroned of its pops? Unsure children grow into unsure adults. Unsure adults produce unsure results, and unsure results meet a system that is not geared to support, or better stated, has created 13th Amendment centers for that sort. I'll be 50 next year, 50 years of a cloaked pursuit, 50 years of trying to be safe for others, 50 years of grieving for mothers, 50 years of hearing the talk, giving the talk, and mastering getting along, 50 years of pushing past fear I see in myself and Trayvon, George, Breonna, and other lives unjustly gone. Our country history, unsavory to the memory, harder to understand, that a man wants to own another man to have an upper hand. But where we are now, not at all hard to understand. The abolishment of slavery and upper hand thinking and some of those practices did not poof and disband. To co-laborers and allies, let's head strategically into the storm, facing both the known oppressors and those who conceal their uniforms. For the realization of God's creation, we shall not be resigned. For the future generations, their unique gifts and their brilliant untapped minds. For our youth, escaping the hood is not the panacea, and special is not scalable. And with our taxpayer rights, we must demand that a proper education for all is available. To my allies, I thank you. My friend Yemi always says, start with your why. Take the journey of the impacted so that your vision is refracted, and let your engagement from hearing move to listening and to that of genuine empathy, in which your informed knowledge base, you can act with more intently. See, we're not monolithic, and so I don't pretend to speak for all Black folks, but if you ask me about me and my house, I can tell you exactly what I want. Consider track and field the first time you see it. It's quite strange. A set of uniform and then non-uniform lines across 6 lanes, and then it's explained. Circumference differences make the journey towards the outside longer, so the rules are appropriately modified, so no one's opportunity is weaker nor stronger. So give me that track and field kind of equity, where things are institutionally clear, acknowledging the history that has been and the future we want to see near. Permanently prohibit redlining that chokes generational prosperity. Permanently change the 13th Amendment and its veiled continuance of slavery. Permanently stop voter suppression in every election and make representation and decision-making in corporations a true population reflection. Shift budgets from private prisons to educators so the next generation is prepared, and stay focused on ands, not ors. Without, we'll never get there. See, the game's been stacked for a while. Upper handers throw crumbs and they expect we'll be gone. But let's respond, not this time. I got my belt of truth, my breastplate of righteousness, my shield of faith. Game on. Back to you, Meredith.
Whew. See a lot of finger snaps and amens. Thank you so much, James.
You're welcome.
I am now so honored on the wake and aftermath of that to hand this conversation over to Latoya Lynn. Latoya is an HR executive and celebrated member of the ThinkHuman community. And Latoya is going to be facilitating this discussion. So welcome, Latoya, and I hand over to you.
Thank you so much, Meredith. Thank you, ThinkHuman. Thank you, 15-5. Thank you everyone here who is tuning in from around the world, really hearing this amazing conversation. I am deeply honored to be a part of this and deeply honored to be connecting with my amazing colleagues that are here that I am so proud to introduce. I'm just kind of sitting in James's beautiful poem. My cells are still kind of working through them a little bit, so bear with me. That was enormous and tremendous and beautiful. And I thank you so much for, creating that beautiful piece for us. Just to kind of start, I'm actually going to start with James, since he shared this beautiful poem with us. So actually, I introduce everyone, just wave your hand. We all know who James is, so I'm going to roll off. James is an executive coach and leadership facilitator with ThinkHuman, and as well as a CEO of the Core Link Solution. And that is a non-profit focused community revitalization through learning and cultural enrichment. James is also a thought leader and focusing on empowering others to reach their full potential. And thank you so much, James, for being here. I also want to introduce Lynette. Lynette is the Vice President of Diversity and Inclusion at Goldman Sachs, located in Dallas, Texas. Lynette's greatest passion is ensuring access and opportunity for children who come from undeserving communities. Thank you so much, Lynette, for being here. And Hakima, I want to just introduce her as the cultural strategist, executive coach, and CEO of Divinely Powered, an executive coach and also an executive coach with Bravely. She uses over 18 years of her corporate experience and personal experience to aid leaders in organization and transforming complex culture into human-centric cultures of inclusivity and innovation. And then I also want to introduce my proud, wonderful brother, Cornell, who is a diversity business partner with Google. He also serves as a diversity educator and strategist for other organizations and has worked with higher education, nonprofit, government, and other corporate sectors. Lastly, Cornell owns and operates a diversity consulting firm called Brave Trainings. Wow, so amazing. I mean, you guys are just wonderful. So before we go ahead and start, how's everybody doing today? Now let's take off mute because now we are red table talking vibe. We are all know each other. We're gonna giggle. We're gonna all those things. We're gonna get it in. Okay. So how's everybody doing?
I'm doing well.
Reeling from the poem, from James' poem. We didn't get to hear it before today,
right.
Because I was not ready for all of that greatness. But it is so happy to be here. So happy to see this community. I mean, this chat is moving so quickly. I'm trying to read it and focus. So thank you all for all of your energy in the chat already. I'm just so excited to engage with this community.
Yeah. Yes. This is the biggest panel, I think, 1,460 something people. I was like, am I looking at that right? I was like, am I doing? I was like, okay. I was like, all right.
It's like a Peloton group, doesn't it?
I'm telling you, look, you see mine in the background. I got on it this morning, y'all. I had to get my energy up.
Right. Get your energy right. So I love this, and we've all kind of had an opportunity to get acquainted with each other, but I want to start off, I want to just start off big, right? And just for a couple of us to kind of talk about, like, let's define, like, what is Blackness? What is Blackness?
Latoya, it's so hard to define it because we could probably use this hour and a half to define it, but for me, Blackness is full of melanin. It is beauty. It is grace. It is joy, even when times are hard. It is forgiveness. It is remembering our ancestors and honoring them in what we do. I know my colleagues have a lot of other words to describe, so I will stop there because I could go on and on.
Blackness to me is resilience, agility, innovation, creativity, complex problem solving. It's African, rooted in a people that is strong and courageous, and it has a history that just cannot be replaced, regardless on the efforts of the oppressors.
I'm actually, when you said it is African, I was fighting back tears. I was like, yes, right? Like, for me, and James, you said this in your spoken word piece, like it's not monolithic, right? Like it is everything. it is power, it is strength, it is vulnerability, right? 'Cause I think oftentimes we paint this picture of like, oh no, Black people are just strong. And so when we're not as strong, it's like, what's happening? It's like, no, we are all those things, right? We are the totality of our different pieces, but we are sexy, we are beautiful, we are just, I mean, I can't even begin to even, encapsulate that into any kind of words, but it is definitely not monolithic. It is everything and everything in between.
Yes. Oh, everything you said. I mean, it's to me, heritage, spirituality, dignity, expanse, is deep rooted, and it's there's a sense. It carries weightiness.
Yes.
And I always say we are shapeshifters, and you said grace, Lynette. I always think grace too, because we have so much. It's so powerful, but at the same time, when we can use that power, we often tilt to grace.
Yeah. And
I'm sorry, Latoya, I'm just reading some of these things in the chat around family, love. It's just so beautiful to see all of these words. I wish we could just create a shirt, a word cloud.
Right? Oh, we can.
Yeah, that's right.
Don't take the idea.
And
cloud, right? Go ahead.
And that family piece is real to me. I was just talking to my husband the other day about that, around how, growing up, our Black family, if you didn't have family, you were our family.
Right.
We fed you, we clothed you, we gave you a place to stay. You didn't need to be blood in order for us to care for you. And like, that is so rooted in our history, where we have always been like, come on in, we will always take you in.
Right. And I want to super glue that, because we're going to go into the stories, and I want to hold that. But I want to add another layer to this question, right? Because, we're defining Black, everybody around the world right now is experiencing Blackness and defining it in a way that, and putting into words. But what I'm hearing really, it's just like, it's all encompassing. It's all kinds of things, right? It is a spiritual Swiss Army knife, if you will. It is so much, and I want and I want us to kind of like see like the importance of it. Like, why is Blackness important? Because when I think about the importance of it, it's like being a woman of color, and also being a lesbian woman of color. I have to kind of like fall into my identity, because my identity has always been like shunned, right? You can't. So, but I want to, the importance of it, and then we're gonna ducktail into our stories, because that's the foundation. So tell me about the importance.
Latoya, I just think this conversation, and I find the importance in bringing this community together so that we are constantly reminded of the greatness that we have and that we've always had, and that our history is rooted in, right? Like, when I look outside or drive down the street, everything that we engage with, there is some of our Blackness rooted in that history. And I think that is just so important for us to remember those things as we go throughout our day to day. And it is important for us to see ourselves mirrored in places, right? Like, all of that is important. But I think, as we go through life every day, whether you're stopping at a stoplight, whether you're turning on the AC, that is all part of Blackness, our history, our story. And it's just important to be reminded of that as we're going through times when people are trying to remind us that we are not as important. And there are constant narratives around us not being important right now. And so it is just so important for us to have this narrative and continue it to remind ourselves when others will not.
Yeah. Right. And I think, to go off of what Lynette just said, I think for me, Blackness has always been the constant in my life. That when everything else wasn't right, or I could always lean back on my Blackness or my Black community in order to find that strength to keep moving forward. Whether it was in the Black church, whether it was out, right, no matter where it was, I could come back home, find that sense of strength, and go right back out and keep doing what I was doing when the world was telling me, no, this is not for you. Right. And my Blackness said, no, you created that. It is yours. Right. You don't need permission. You don't need permission.
Right. For me, I think it's important because, my Blackness, it humanizes me and everyone else. Right. My experience. Hey, I'm human just like you. Right. This color, it doesn't change anything. So I want you to hear me, see me, and partner with me to make change with me. see my humanity so that we can all as a collective be great.
Mm. Mm.
Yes. Yes.
I think, for me, I think it's important. I think because we have an indelible mark, right? I think we have an indelible mark, and I think we all, to a certain degree, while not monolithic, feel like we're still on a journey and are very much still becoming, and feel a responsibility to that becoming in the midst of the current, and trying to do well now and prepare for our next generations to do well. I think without even talking about it, there's a sense, a common sense amongst all of us to be doing that, right? And we don't even have to have the conversation sometimes. We can be in a place and something happen, and without talking, there is a common mission. And I don't even know how, you know what I mean? Like, it just happens. And it just feels like a part of the experience.
Yeah. Yes. And, you know, I'm hearing, you know, this is setting the tone of the conversation. This is the prelude to what the rest of this conversation is going to look like. And that's just the finding and the importance. And for everybody that's out there watching this, you know, from all backgrounds, you know, our hope is that you take a piece of these stories and try to really think through them. And at the end, really sit with yourself and figure out what your next opportunity is to really kind of make a change in your own life, your family, whatever, or if anyone can like kind of build up. And, you know, I always think about, you know, how to really, you know, bring it. And it's in our music, it's in our food, it's in the way we walk, it's in the way we talk, and when we dress, all these different things, but they all came from somewhere. And I want to bring it back to Cornell, because you started talking about the family and the stories. And before you start, this is something that you probably will not see in any other webinar when it comes to the way we storytell. Storytelling is an African tradition of how to learn through experiences and gain knowledge for generations to come. Okay? And it is a natural way that Black people tell stories. So I'm gonna go ahead and pass it on to Cornell. Go ahead and tell us your story. And then I want you to nominate someone else to tell their story.
Yeah. Oh, wow. So it's funny because we practiced this, and I'm still like, oh, what am I going to say? Right. I think, you know, my story is the shortened version of that story is, you know, I grew up in Camden, New Jersey. I'm the oldest of 5 kids. Mom was a single parent, you know, and really sacrificed a lot in order to make sure her children had what they needed, right? You know, and I recently talked to my sisters about this around how, you know, sometimes we often felt like there was something that we missed. And I said, no, mommy gave us all that she had, right? If she had 100%, she gave it to us. And that's what she was able to give us. And I think for me, growing up in Camden, New Jersey, and realizing focusing on what we didn't have, it wasn't until I got into the real world and went to college that I realized, no, I had more than most people did, because I had this foundational level of skill set of how to navigate the world. Everything from doing your own laundry, which none of my peers knew how to do when we went to college. Everything from how to survive on your own, right? Like, even with, you know, if for some reason the universe didn't allow me to go to college, I had this skill to be able to survive in the world. And a lot of children don't have that, right? And so my mom couldn't give me, you know, the college education. She couldn't give me the latest, you know, clothes. She couldn't give me a house, right? She didn't give me those material things, but she gave me values. She gave me ethics. She gave me morals. She gave me a foundation in which I've built all this other stuff on, right? And that was, you know, and to me, that's the story. The story is not one of deficit. It is one of extreme emotional and mental wealth that my mother provided. I think that is I think the images of Blackness is always up in a deficit model. But when you really look deeply at what we give each other, it is full of all the right things that we need to get us where we're trying to go. So graduated from Ithaca College, went on and taught high school English in Atlanta, Georgia, and worked with my kids to empower them to think differently of themselves so they could achieve whatever it was that they wanted to achieve. And then went and got a master's at University of Vermont in higher education, student affairs. And now I'm working, this is the first time I'm actually announcing this, that I am now in a doctoral program for organizational change and leadership, which is beyond my wildest expectations of myself. I must admit that imposter syndrome still shows up. But here I am getting ready to earn that doctorate. And now, working at Google. And so, I have been able to achieve a lot of things because of what my mother gave me all those years ago that didn't look like things you could buy with money, but it had everything to do with what she gave me in my spirit and my heart. So thank you for that.
So good.
Okay, who do you nominate? Who's going next?
Oh, I nominate, because all three of y'all are amazing. All right, go Lynette.
No, I just love you so much. I just love you so much. So again, hi everyone. I am from Alexandria, Virginia, right outside of Washington, D.C. And as Mel said, the story I could go on for a long time, but I will just kind of summarize mine and say, I was raised by the community. And, every time I think about my story, time in my life or a moment in my life, I remember having the support from a village of people who helped ensure that I was going in the right direction, in whatever direction that I wanted to, but that I was going in that right direction. I'm the middle child, older sister, younger brother, and my parents, I think, very purposefully put us in a position where there were people always around us. So no matter if I was walking in the neighborhood, if I was at school and, there were teachers who knew my name, there were always people around me that could be models of incredible people that I could look up to and be. And I think that is what the legacy that I want to leave behind is. How do I continue to help create this village around our community, around our younger community, to ensure that they feel that same type of love? And to be very honest, frank with you all, that I always knew an eye was on me. I always knew, no matter where I walked, where I was talking, where I was speaking, that there was an eye on me. And that just continued to drive me towards greatness. And I think that is what my ultimate goal was. And I knew that there was a community that was looking at me to do that. So I went to North Carolina State University, where I ran a nonprofit while I was in college that was focused on supporting kids who were at risk. And that just kind of really kicked off my passion and energy around education and equities in education, and the need for us to focus on ensuring that all kids had the same opportunities and all teachers saw our kids as incredible people who needed that same opportunity. And then I went and worked for Target Corporation, did some human resources there, community engagement. And then found my way over to Houston, Texas, where I worked at Teach for America for about 4 years, doing a couple of roles there. Again, working with kids, really understanding the system that our kids are battling against every single day. And that work, I think, just changed my entire life, to be quite honest. And then Google called, and I moved out to the Bay for 1 year. I couldn't take it for longer than that. And then moved back to Texas, where I continue to work for Google. And then about a year ago, I transitioned to Goldman Sachs and moved to Dallas, Texas, where, not only do I get to now experience a very different industry, but I get to continue using my philanthropy and advocacy to support our children, which is never going to leave what is the core to me. So I'm so happy to be here. And if you all hear any noise, I'm in New Orleans right now, which is my favorite place.
Woo, yes, New Orleans.
Favorite place. And so if you hear noise, it's because people are all over here. But yeah, I'm going to pass it to James. And I know you have a lot to share with us from that spoken word. So James, I'm going to pass it on to you.
No, I'm gonna be short after the spoken word. So I grew up in North Philadelphia. My parents were from the South, Georgia and Florida. They say I was the firstborn up north in the family, so I bear all the stuff from that. I think early on I suffered from lack of validation. I just never felt like I had my father's validation. And then, so when my parents were divorced, I went to live with him for a while. And then one day after school, he just never came home. And then second day goes by, third day goes by, he doesn't come home. And so months go by, and we find him in New York. We're in Philly, we find him in New York. And then things transpire, and he passes away from AIDS, unfortunately. I didn't get that validation before he passed away, right? So it just threw me into a fit of acting out. My version, and this is the thing about, I think, acting out, we don't realize it. Everyone's version of acting out is different. My version of acting out was I tried to overperform to get the validation, right? So I just had to perform. So I was working at a financial institution at that time. I then went to work at Chase, and I worked my way up to being the well, in between there, the funny story, I wound up going to Temple University for a day because my financial aid didn't go through. So, and my mom was right in between that sliver of earn too much to get grants, but not enough to get financial aid. So I got booted out of Temple. And so I wound up working my way up through Chase and becoming a senior vice president and running what we called HR service delivery for all of North America. And then at the tender age of like 34, I go back to school and finish my undergraduate and decide I also want to move to the revenue side of the business. So I go into the credit card side of the business. I'm a senior vice president there for several years. And then I get an opportunity similar to that to go to Chicago for 3 years and be president of a division at Allstate Insurance Company. I do that for 3 years. And I think during that time, there was a time I said, you know, I want to get to the C-suite so I can help more folks come out of the hood and be successful, right? Because when I was growing up in the Black neighborhood, it was, you're either going to be a rapper to get out, or you're going to be an athlete to get out, right? Or unfortunately, you knew a bunch of drug dealers, right? That was it. That's who you knew. And I said, well, how do you change that dynamic? If I can get to the C-suite, I can try to pull more people out. So that was a part of the mission. And that worked for a while. And I felt good about that for a while. I spent 3 years at Allstate, you know, really working with folks. And then I got another call and went to a company called Legal Shield and was president of B2B there for a while. And then subsequently the chief commercial officer. And during that period of time, decided, you know what, not only do I want to be in a C-suite, I want to be in my nonprofit full time. I want to figure out how we really create systems and infrastructure to help people get to where they need to get to. And that's why I left and do what I do now. So that's my story.
Amazing.
All right.
Oh, so I'm going to pick, I come on.
Yeah, I know. It's okay, James. My name is Hakimia Jackson. I'm a culture strategist and executive coach. I'm the oldest of seven kids. You know, at one point in time in my life, I used to be ashamed to tell this story. And I am now so proud to be transparent and to share my testimony. So I'm a child of a mother who had me at 16. My mother sold drugs to make sure ends meet, you know. My father's from Colombia. Some would say he's an immigrant, an illegal alien. I call him my papi. And, you know, growing up, looking around, staying next to crack homes and seeing prostitutes walk up and down the street, you know, for some people, they became products of their environment. Fortunately, I was covered and I never allowed the opinions of others to become my reality. I say my mother is the best PhD teacher there is because she raised 7 beautiful, brilliant kids to be great with multiple degrees. Even though the world constantly tried to discount me, I never allowed that to be my story. My story started off early at the age of 15 in the co-op program. I'm originally from Tampa, Florida. I started working at Tico Energy at 15, the only Black, you know, young co-op student. And I'm thankful that I had, you know, my mom would call them those spiritual warriors around me to guide me and navigate, you know, my path forward. It was because of the prayers of my ancestors and my mother and my support system in my community that Lynette talks about that helped me get to where I am today. So where am I today? I am the CEO of Divinely Powered Leadership Development and Executive Coaching Practice. The core of my expertise rests in the SAP and Oracle industry. However, I transitioned into talent management and executive coaching about 6 years ago. What prompted this move to entrepreneurship was my experience at one of the big fours, PricewaterhouseCoopers. I was there for 14 years, again, working in that technology space, and then I transitioned. But there was something that really kick-started this move to be that entrepreneur and to help people transition and to no longer accept the stifling behavior from leadership that they encountered, specifically for my minority people of color in corporate America. And it was the discrimination that I seen, the microaggressions, and I just couldn't take it anymore. So thankfully, I was called to do this work. And I am passionate about advancing leadership and maximizing human potential. This is only the beginning for us. You know, my mother gave me the blueprint to survive. Now I'm creating the blueprint to thrive. So let's ride.
Nice.
Back to you, LaToya.
Wow. So, you know,
If I had a microphone, I go.
Well said.
I haven't even get a chance to tell my story yet.
Girl, kill it.
I mean, you know, I'm gonna briefly share mine, and I'm gonna fold it all in together. You know, and very similar to all of you, my mother was a single mom. Had me. She's also an immigrant from Jamaica, and she cleaned houses in Westchester County. And when I was born, there was this, and I've never actually shared this the story public, but there was a conversation around like, you know, you're an immigrant, now you're pregnant, you know, what do you do, right? And the mission behind my mom being pregnant was I was supposed to, in the early 80s, bring my family to America for a better life and a better opportunity. So I am the firstborn in my entire family on both sides. You know, and when I went to Jamaica, like, you know, I was like this super American kid, and everybody's like, what is this? They were so excited. And when my mom didn't have enough money to put me in daycare when she was a housekeeper, she would put me in a stroller in a corner, and I would be so quiet for whatever. I was just like, to me, you know, a quiet kid, I guess, a quiet baby. And the owners would be like, is there a cat in the house? And eventually my mom said, there's a baby, and this is my baby. And I was just surrounded with love and positivity from that. And being a native New Yorker, you know, I'm from New York. I've lived in every borough, Bronx, Queens, Manhattan. Now I live in Brooklyn. You know, I really learned to really move around with my own Blackness. And I didn't really recognize or know that I was a Black person until I got to corporate America. I just knew I was just LaToya. Like, I would just like talk to anybody. I would have lots of friends. I went to a high school that was, a junior high school that was economically and racially diverse. So, you know, I just kind of was just like myself. And then when I realized that people were pinning me in a particular box, I was like, wait, this doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense. And it wasn't until I was actually fired from my first job at the Delacorte Theater, Joe Public Theater, that I realized that what is this connection between human resources and people? This is 16 years old, is a very weird thing to think about when you're 16, especially living in New York. But from then on, I've moved my career in a place of just understanding that dynamic, because I've seen my mom work so hard and caring about work and caring about her career, to where I want to really create a space where everybody, you know, Black, white, indifference, anyone can really create the space. But then I was put on this like, oh, here we are. I'm a Black woman doing this and shepherding this experience for everyone. And, you know, from then on, I worked in various companies. I got a dual master's at Brooklyn College, CUNY, Brooklyn College, anybody out there, in industrial organizational psychology and org behavior. I fell in love with cognitive neuroscience, researched that for years. I just finished a couple of executive certifications from Harvard and from MIT. And I'm really just using technology and my Blackness and everything to kind of create an inclusive environment for all. And I think, you know, just hearing everybody's story and pulling it together from a humanistic standpoint, and I'm watching these chats and they're kind of like firing through, you know, this is a humanistic experience. Everybody has a family. Everybody has someone that they connect to. Everybody had struggles, right? However, from the Black perspective, there, you know, some of it is just so unnecessary. So like, why? But why? So I want to take what Lynette shared around community, and also Cornell. I think all of you guys kind of been in our community and like having that village to raise us, right? And then now going to the workplace, and you sit at your desk, where is the village? Where is the neighbor that's telling your mother that you have a boy, you're sticking a boy in the house? Where is the grocer that's telling you oh, you don't have, oh, you don't worry about the extra dollar. So go ahead, it's fine. Pay me back later. Go ahead. Where they at? Go ahead, Akima. Go ahead. Tell us. Do you know where they at?
So, you know what? I think we've been as educated Black people. Sometimes it's tough when you are the first one. Oh. And I speak to a lot of leaders about this, specifically, you know, Black leaders, even some of my Latinos, because you're afraid of losing. And I'm gonna be real. My fear was I can't mess up because I'm not going back to the hood. And so you're so afraid to make that courageous sacrifice. Instead, you rather distance yourself from your Blackness. I literally had this conversation yesterday where somebody in their 30s are starting to finally accept their Blackness and be proud of it. So what happens is you put on these masks, you deny certain things, and then you create this false narrative that may not necessarily be true, because the reality that you've built isn't built on truth. It's built on what you perceive to be true. So you don't offer those opportunities to really engage with one another, because you know why? The leader might see, you know what? I might be misunderstood, instead of truly being comfortable in your identity and who you are, and welcoming and building that community.
Right.
You know, this is a really good point. And, you know, I would say that from growing up, I was always reminded of my Blackness. And so when I got into corporate America and didn't see it as prevalent in those spaces, my first question was, well, where are all the people? Because I know who I grew up around, and I don't know why they are not sitting here with me. And so it always became a mission for me to think about, well, how am I creating the space? I'm going to tell you, like, my roles in corporate America, they have not been easy. And they have not been easy because I refused to not be the voice at the table that said, well, is that performance rating fair to that performance rating that we just said we were giving that person? And I'm not going to lie, that is hard when you are the only person in the room doing that. But I felt as though it was my responsibility. And also, I'm gonna be quite honest, at some points I was like, well, what do I have to lose? Because if they are going to get rid of me for speaking my truth, they are going to get rid of the next person and the next person. If I don't use this table right now to make a change in how we are addressing these inequities, then we are actually not going to move any further than where we were when I came. And my goal is always to leave a place better than where I first got there. And so that has always been the mission. And I think the village, I'm so happy we are no longer just standing at the water cooler having this conversation, because it needs to be seen that we have a community of people, and we need to stop hiding at our desk or hiding in the room, because we need to come from beside the water cooler in the conference room. I remember when we used to be ashamed to stand together in spaces because people question, what are we talking about?
But you know where that's from though, right? But you know,
absolutely. I know that. I know exactly what it's from.
Speak on it. Where's it from?
I know exactly where it's from.
You're living.
That, and you know, and there's a lot of mentality around like the groups of us together, and the, you know, that is scary to people, and we have to be. And I'm so glad we are getting from beside that. But I want people to know that find those one or two people, and instead of taking that meeting in the conference room, try just doing it at your desk. And then try doing it when you get into another room, right? Like, and sometimes it's baby steps. And I also want to clarify, LaToya, and I'm always mindful when I say this, that this is just who I am and how I show up. And there's no expectation that everyone can do this in this way. But what we are trying to equip you with, and what I try to equip people with, is what are those baby steps that you can take in your space to make yourself, to push beyond what you did yesterday. And that's always just what I'm talking, push beyond what you did yesterday.
I think I love that so much, because I think that's such parallels to my own experience with my Blackness and other identities, where at some point in my life I said enough is enough, right? Like, I'm not going to sit here and do nothing, suffer in silence. Like, if I'm going to suffer, you're going to hear about it, right? You're going to hear about it so much to the point where you're going to have to do something to change it. or you're gonna get rid of me. And you're gonna get rid of me, I'm gonna keep my savings account nice and full. So just in case y'all decide to do that, she gonna be all right. Right? Like I had to do that. But I had to come to that and that's that power within our Blackness that we had to dig deep into find, right? Because like our history is resilience, right? And in those moments where we were told that you weren't good enough, that you shouldn't be doing this and you shouldn't be allowed to do this, we've always fought back and said, no. I'm not going to take that. And so I think, you know, in spaces where I've been the only, you know, I definitely want to agree with everything that's been said. It's like, it is definitely difficult because you do fear, you know, being fired, you fear being reprimanded, you fear all those different things. But at some point for me, and I love that you said that, I recognize that that's what I'm doing. Right. I think that because everyone has a different situation that they have to be mindful of, you know, and so I really appreciate that. And again, for me, I had to recognize and say, no, I'm going to use this voice, right? I'm going to use it before I leave this earth. People will know where I stood. And I will do what I can to make sure that if I'm the one that has to take, you know, the fall for opening his mouth, that at least the people behind me coming after me won't have to. Right, because I have initiated that work in any space, and also not just for myself and my identities, but for the other marginalized individuals that don't get a seat at the table. Because as a Black man, I get a seat at the table more often than Black women do, right? So how am I also making sure our sisters are also, you know, being advocated for, and that we're calling out, why aren't they here, and asking that question.
Right. So good. For me, yeah, everything you guys said, and you know, when I think about the community, one of the things that pops in my mind as soon as you said community in the workplace was like the employee resource groups, right? It was like that was the place people waited for to have the conversations, right? And people would get in the room, and then it was like a throwing up, and it's like, wow, why weren't we talking about any of this until this moment? Like we were supposed to come here to start maybe working on some things, but that became a safe place. And you think about a lot of this, what we're talking about is psychological safety in many cases. But then what we also found is no one was going to give us psychological safety necessarily. We found it on the other side of starting those relationships in many cases. And then the other thing is, Cornell, exactly what you said. One of the things I found to be so helpful is as soon as I got any scratch was to resist the temptation to live into new income and live below my means, right? And create something that gave me more confidence to say, I can step out more and take more liberties. And the third thing that comes to mind in community is, as you see more and do more, I remember my assistant one day saying to me, I can't get anything else on your schedule because you keep taking all these mentee meetings, right? And I think when you're in a position, and just like Lynette, you said, I remember being in Delaware, I think it was only 4 Black senior vice presidents out of, I don't know, probably a couple hundred in Delaware. And so everyone is coming, and you say, you can't say no, I'm gonna take the meetings. And I would say to my assistant, well, I gotta eat. Brother gonna eat breakfast and lunch, so fill that up and we'll do whatever we do. But it occurred to me one day, we don't have to wait for the ERG meeting. Why don't every Tuesday we just meet for breakfast up in the CAF? And 5 people showed up one week, 10 the next week, 20 the next week. And instead of you trying to talk to me, I'm introducing all you, and you find you'll have better, quite frankly, better answers talking to each other than, I'm not saying I won't still be a mentor, but your answers reside with you. So have those conversations, right?
I think we, oh, go ahead. Sorry, Latoya, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think we oftentimes don't realize the knowledge and the expertise that already exists within ourselves. And so we think, oh, well, it's not me. It must be. And again, that's that imposter syndrome. And I think you really like that's that bridge building. It's like, yeah, I'm in this high position, but y'all also have this knowledge because you've lived, right? Like you have lived. Yeah.
And, you know, I want to bring together a couple of things that I heard that was so meaningful around community is, you know, really standing in your power and recognizing that it's internal work first, right? Mm-hmm. And what I want everyone on this call to really hear is that this is how much energy it takes to show up to work. This is what I want to highlight. Mm-hmm. That's how much there's that. There is, worrying about what's in your inbox and the meetings that you're going to have for the day. There's also that. And then layered on all of that to come show up to work to do this, and be at work, because there is a lack of community, and because, you know, we need to create spaces. And Lynette, you know, when you were talking about like the congregation of Black folks, I was like, come on, speak on it. And where that came from, it came from the plantation.
Yeah.
Plantation owners did not want more than 2 or 3 slaves to sit in one space and have a conversation, because they're going to be plotting to escape. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So that, and we are still wired that way from a DNA perspective.
Yeah, so true.
And Latoya, I mean, you're absolutely right. And I'm just going to plug that, you know, over these past 7 weeks, Raj Kumari, there's a biology of belonging that talks about our epigenetics and this trauma that we continue to carry forward. And you know, one, I just say we should all just be doing generational work to understand what the baggage and the things that we are bringing forward, the things that we can kindly hand back and say, I am no longer going to carry this with me, but thank you for teaching me. Right. And those are incredibly powerful lessons of what are those things that we can not take forward, and those lessons that we will always continue to carry. And I think that is so important. I thank you for bringing that up, because it is that internal work. It is that internal work that we need to do. But I also think that there are systems in place to continue to make it harder. And I think that it is, you know, while we are here, and I know one of the missions of this conversation was not only to talk about the systems and the things, because we've been talking about those for months, and especially if you're in a corporate space, I think more so than ever right now. But I do think it is so important for us to think about, you know, what are those things that we are bringing forward? What are those lessons that our parents taught us about the conversations not to have at work? The conversations of how we should behave so that we keep our good paying jobs, and especially those who don't come from wealth and privilege you know, there are things that we are trying to hold on to. And I think there is an absolute mind shift that needs to happen, as well as dismantling systems. They'll go toe in toe for us to be able to move forward. So thank you for bringing that up. And I've just been doing, you know.
I think what you're getting at is the healing, right? Like it's the healing that we have to do on ourselves. Like that was one of the things that when I turned 21, you know, I said no. Like there's some stuff, and I think her name is Dr. Joy DeGruy, who does her research on post-traumatic slave syndrome, and talking about the impact that history that we weren't even there for, but got passed down from generation has impact on how we even look at ourselves in the mirror.
Right.
And so for me, it was taking that baby step of looking at myself in the mirror every morning and saying, you are beautiful. You like what Ella Davis did it, you know, you are right. Like, but like literally saying that to yourself to the point where you began to believe it. So even when I walked out on the street and people said otherwise, I looked at you and went, please. Right? And it reminds me of that little video, and she's probably like 10 now. This little video of this girl, she's 2 years old, and her mom is standing her in the mirror every morning saying, I'm gorgeous. And she throws her head back. Teaching her right now, because the world won't affirm that, right? But you must know it deep in your heart that you are gorgeous, you are beautiful, you are intelligent, so that when the world tells you that, you have the foundation to fall back on. Like, nah, I don't believe that. I know.
I just want to add on to that point, Cornell, because what you said is so important, that in terms of that self-love, and I would even say self-care, particularly for Black men, right? Because when it comes to Black men, we don't like to talk about therapy. We don't like to talk about mental health. Right. We have a history where we almost had a fatherless generation during the crack era and those laws and everything that happened there. And I'm not talking about excuses. It's just factual, right? Yeah. And so in this moment, what our tendency is, our reflex is to quote unquote do what we're taught, man up, fight through it, wrestle through it, be more persistent, man your people. Well, you know what? Put your mask on first.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay? Put your mask on first. You can't be the leader you want to be unless you put your mask on first.
Yes.
You can't help people in the manner you want to. You can't take care of your family you want to if you do not take care of yourself through self-care. If you do not give yourself the time to be mentally right, physically right, nutrition, and do all those things. So the things we avoid talking about are the very things we have to talk about.
Yes.
What I heard everyone say, at least what my spirit is receiving, is that giving yourself permission to live and not just exist. I mean, that's the core core of us. Like, I'm not going to live to the status quo, you know, of what's being defined for me, right? I'm going above and beyond. Yes. I am here. And again, my narrative is going to stay the same. I am human. And because I am human, I struggle. I struggle emotionally. I struggle mentally. And I'm telling you, I need help when I need help.
Yeah.
Right?
I just started therapy for that reason. Yes, I can. Yeah. Literally this week, I started therapy because I was realizing the pain was coming back up again. And you know, and I said, no, I can't let this.
How do you process that? Go ahead, Hima, go ahead.
I was going to say, even with that, Cornell, you know, we talk about white privilege and white people escaping. The privilege of Black people, we escape. We escape a lot our realities. We don't want to address it. We don't want to admit it. Say, I'm hurting right now. I need my brother Cornell by my side. I need my sister Latoya to lift me up and walk with me.
Yes.
We want to deny these things because why? Like Latoya talked about, that plantation mentality, because I don't need it. It's me, the individual, and not the collective.
Yeah.
It's the collective that's going to make me great.
Yeah.
Right. And that's and I love that you call out this point, and I want to tie it back to, you know, that community in the workplace and lack thereof, because there are going to be moments where we're going to need our brothers and sisters to pull us up, because that's how we operate in our day-to-day life, and we can't because of that. And but I want to take this conversation into a space where, what do we do to kind of bring ourselves, I see the conversation going to mental health. I recognize in the chat that there is some comments on like, we need a fact sheet. Boy, I didn't think y'all were gonna learn all this today, did y'all, huh? And we only halfway through. So in all of that, you know, I wanna talk about what really uplifts us. For me, like, I get my healing through music, listening to music. I get my healing through meditation. I'm also an SGI Buddhist. I'm your Renge Kyo. Anyone out there? And I do all the things I can to really get myself centered. What do you do, like, to bring yourself up? You know, we hear the stories from our parents telling us, like, no, you are beautiful, you are great. But then what is the next chapter? What do we do to heal? Lynette, I want to hear from you.
Yeah, Latoya, so as I mentioned, I've been doing a lot of this lately. So not only was I attending this boot camp, but I was a small group facilitator. And there is a lot to be said about, you cannot heal unless you know what the unmet need is. And I think that it is absolutely important for us to do reflections around what are our unmet needs, so that we can then begin to heal, right? Like, you don't know what you don't know. And so I think that is number one. I think once I have figured out what those are, one, it is like figuring out how to communicate at what the secondary emotion is, right? Like, I think it's so easy to say, I'm angry, I'm mad. What is that secondary emotion that we are missing? And so I've been doing a lot around, like, having a feelings catalog. I literally have a sheet of paper next to me that are like all of the feelings, so that when I'm trying to articulate what is happening to me, that I can get to the root of it, because then I can go to the next level, right? Like, I can put it behind me, I can move forward. And so really reflecting has been something that I've been doing lately. You know, I love to travel. Thank you, Rona. That is not happening as much. I should literally be getting on a plane to Costa Rica right this second. So I'm gonna just keep praying for my peace on that. But you know, those are the things that when I am trying to get time and just recover, right? Like, I think there are moments where, you know, you're in a workplace and there's a lot of weight that is put on you, not only to do your job, right? And I've seen a lot about ERGs, y'all. And the reason I'm not really touching on employee resource groups right now is because that could be a whole nother session for a whole nother day. And I know a lot of us have engaged with them, so I'm trying to be careful of that. But you know, doing that work, and that being my core role is around diversity, equity, and inclusion work, right? Is that I need to recover. So travel, doing work around reflecting on my healing, that has been really powerful for me. Meditation, I have the Calm app where, you know, I listen at night. So it's really helpful to, like, get my brain clear to go to sleep. So those are some of the things I'm doing right now.
What about you, James? What do you do? How do you get yourself together?
I got a pretty strict routine. So I morning, I'm devotionals first in the morning, right? And then I'm like Cornell, I work out, a little strength training in my Peloton, and then music. I'm a big music. I think music is really at the center of music and creativity. It's so funny. I was on a flight. I'm like Linda. I used to travel a lot. I bumped into Fred Hammond by accident coming through a plane. I said, brother, if you knew how many times Pages of Life kept me from walking off the plank, okay? He's like, thank you, thank you, brother. Right? Yeah, so those, and for me, and working in my purpose, right? Feeling like I'm doing the things I've been called to do are healing for me.
Anybody else?
So for me, you just stepped into my freedom space right now. So the reason why, one of the reasons why I started my coaching practice is because we work on three things: the EQ, the IQ, and the SQ. And that SQ is very important. But I recognize, which is the spiritual intelligence. That may be Jesus, God, Buddha, whatever energy, or spiritual source you have. But a lot of people don't allow that into the conversation. And I believe it's a very important part of the conversation. I always tell, my clients, whether they're in Ireland, Australia, at Zillow, Pinterest, New York Times, wherever that is, to follow your own GPS. And that's, stay true to your gift, your purpose, and your source. And so mine is, I'm a believer. I'm also the youth pastor or co-youth pastor for our church ministries. So I wake up, my devotion time, and in prayer, and I celebrate with my community. I get my energy from each and every one of you guys. So that I need that to really, for me to continue to live at this level of energy that I have.
Yes.
Absolutely. I think for me, and I must admit, I'm trying to reform that. I got away from being intentional about that piece. And for me, it's always been music, though, right? Like music has always been the thing. I put on my Beats headphones, and I'm in my bubble, and it's very particular music. I grew up on the Earth, Wind and Fire and the Patti LaBelle and the Gladys Knight, like all the greats. So I have an entire playlist of that's my healing playlist. And you just press play, and they just take you there, and I'm doing work, but I'm in here and also I must admit, my husband has been that big piece of just being, for me, getting that energy out of me is what I need to do. I need to get it out. And so he has been a really great sounding board of just listening and just asking questions, helping me understand, helping me reflect. So having a partner who can really give you that space to do that healing and just protect your energy has been really amazing for me.
Amazing.
That's good.
I think, I spoke earlier about music, and what I'm hearing is that music, and Black music in particular, really speaks to everybody, whatever race you are and whatever background you are, whatever generation you are. It really speaks to you, but there is something woven in the stories of those songs that touches us. It brings us to a memory.
Yes.
I mean, how many times have any of us, raise your hand if you cleaned your house to Anita Baker?
Come on,
Absolutely.
Come on. That's a layup question.
Don't let me put on Shirley Caesar, because it's a wrap. I won't clean.
That's a layup question.
I'm like, no.
Clean days, Cornell.
Because listen, those are the songs
Right.
that bring us to memories that you hear at the cookouts. You hear that your grandmama is playing to or listening to. I'm Jamaican, so my grandmother, she listened to everything is like Desmond Decker, Alton Ellis. That's my music too. Like I listen to everything, but that's also the essence. And it's all of the stories of struggle is built into that, and also uplifting and praising ourselves as people of color. I mean, it just spreads far and wide. I appreciate everyone sharing their healing and giving. Sade, yes, of course.
Wonder.
Yeah.
Oh, somebody calling Shirley Caesar? Yeah.
I also grew up listening to Spanish music. So, Celia Cruz, who was preaching about Blackness when it wasn't cool, right? Like, so let's remember that too, right? And so, just a plethora of different music.
India, Cruz, I'm half Cuban, so shout out to all the Cubanos out there.
Yes, all of it. Yeah.
So something else that I know that we do as a community is that we love our affirmations, don't we?
Oh yeah.
We love a good affirmation.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna share a couple of affirmations. And I want you to listen, respond, and take it in. Okay.
Right.
And for everyone that's out there, I'm gonna go ahead and you know, drop whatever affirmation in the post so you guys can read along with us and be a part of this process, and really, you know, share your perspective. So here's one. I'm allowed to acknowledge all that makes me human. I give myself permission to weep and experience sorrow, to laugh or to cry, to make mistakes, feel failure, grieve, and to praise. And I will recognize my humanness and be submerged in all its glory. Take it in and respond as you would like.
I mean, I think it says what it means, right? Like, I think there's so much around us that reminds us that we should suppress certain parts of who we are. And what this is saying is that actually suppressing that is not allowing your greatness to fully be exposed. And I think our purpose here, and why not spend the time that we have exposing our purpose and living in that. And so to me, it is when we bring all of those things out, that is our ability to live in our purpose and our greatness. And that is what we are here to do. And so that is what that affirmation speaks to me. It's like reminding me to continue to live that.
So good. It's hard to add anything to what Lynette said, seriously. I mean, the only word I can say is unlearn, and a child shall lead them, right?
Say that one more time and say it slow, because I want to marinate in that one.
You have to unlearn, because we've learned so many things that keep us from doing that. And just like scripture says, and a child shall lead them.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Ready for the next one? All right, let's do it. Woo. Okay. I see everybody in the chat going off too.
Yeah.
Okay. I am deserving of respect. I practice kindness. I cultivate love towards others, and I have a right to expect the same energy to be emitted back to me. Being treated like a human is not too much to ask for. Therefore, I will make my petition known unapologetically.
I'm sorry, I have to go first. Give me that track and field kind of equity.
Yes. Yes.
I give accountability. We are quick to seek or be, you know, ensure that our allies keep them accountable, but we have to keep ourselves accountable. And sometimes that requires us to speak up when we don't want to. But when we speak up, like Cornell talked about, it's speaking up for the greater good, not just me. I may be putting myself at risk, but look at the thousands of people behind me that's going to be great because of my voice.
Yes.
So being sure that whatever is in front of you, that's just the small thing. Look at the magnitude.
Yes.
Look at what's going to happen years to come.
Yes.
This is our time to speak up, use this power, and truly exercise that freedom that other people have been privileged to have.
And because none of these systems will go quietly, right? And so we can't be quiet. And for me, what the affirmation also says, you know, a number of years ago, I decided that I wasn't going to allow negative people or people who did not have my best interest at heart into my space, right? And into that circle, right? We could see each other from a distance, but you weren't allowed to be a part of my inner space if you weren't out in terms of positivity or you weren't uplifting me, right? Because I'm going to do that to you. I'm always going to do that for you. And if you're not doing that back, you've got to go somewhere else. And so really being conscious about who I call friend, who I call family, who I allow that close into that inner ring, right? You know, and that to me is what that, and being okay with that and saying like, it's okay that I defriended you on Facebook, that I know, right? Like all those things that we think is hard to do.
People get so hurt by that. It's just like a thing now.
Right? It's amazing how people are hurt by that. And I can't tell you how many, you know, and particularly what, you know, Maya Angelou said, when people show you who they are, believe them. And I'm going to choose to believe you every time you show me who you are. And you know what? That's okay. That is who you are, but you won't be who you are here with me. Right? Because I'm on this, I'm trying to get somewhere and that's stopping me. Sorry, Lynette, go ahead.
No. And I'm not going to derail us because I know this can, but you said something about accountability. I saw a lot of things. I called it out earlier about the employee resource groups. I just want to be clear to this humanistic point. It is not the job of Black people or our Hispanic, Latinx, Latino community to build these groups so that people can then find us human.
Wait, Lynette. I need you to say it one more time.
Because that is the mic drop.
Come again. We need to rewind and come again.
It is not our role as Black people, as our Hispanic, Latinx, as our LGBTQ plus communities, to build communities so that people find us human.
Right.
Those communities are supposed to be a space where we can have a village when our companies do not have the representation, thus that we see it every single day. The accountability that Hakima was talking about belongs at the C-suite, belongs at the leadership table, and that I want to free us. I want to free us from thinking that it is our unpaid job to use those spaces to actually change the actual narrative of what companies are doing. It is our job to use those communities to support, uplift, get funding to do amazing things for our community. That is what an employee resource group is for. And I feel as though we are trying to, and I think a lot of the trauma comes from because we're not able to make the gains that we want. We feel less human in our workspace because these groups are not doing what we thought they would do, but it is not the group's job to undo the systems that were put in place. And so I just want to call that out, that accountability and humanistic piece is so important. And I hope that frees somebody, because I wish someone had said it to me to free me years and years ago. Right. And so I will pause there, and I don't want to derail us on employee resource.
No, you ain't derail a thing, Lynette.
We need more time. We need more time on that.
Also bring up something so important because, like you mentioned, the C-suite. It's also, I also want to call out these companies and organizations that hire Black and Latinx folks as the only in the C-suite, and then go, hey, so can you help fix it? And so it's also not their individual job either, because they didn't create that system. And then to hire them as the token to then come in and free everybody else is also not their job.
But Cornell, that's why I say the suite, right? Because it's not a D&I person's job, right? It is, they are there, and I'm saying a D&I person because that is, if you look at all of the roles that are posted right now, that is what people are hiring for. And it is their job to help drive the strategy for accountability that a company is going to take on to then help dismantle the systems that company has put into place.
Here's an example. Think about a sales team. A sales team needs to go out and sell. They need a product. They need a system to help them deliver the actual sale. Take out sales team, insert D&I. The same thing. You need a machine around that, okay? I want to bring us to one last quote here, because this is just ties us back, okay? Bring us together. I am worthy. The color of my skin does not define where I belong in this world. And no one will be allowed to disregard my presence, silence my voice based on the color of my flesh. Go ahead, James.
It took me a long time to get this one, actually. I thought I had to come out of my Timberland boots and get a tailored suit, right? Seriously. And I discovered that it wasn't about the suit and no one was going to recognize me different because I was in the suit. It was how I saw myself.
Right.
Yeah.
It didn't matter, right? It's how you see yourself and carry yourself, present yourself, and do all the things you need to do. So that's where it resonates with me.
Right.
I would definitely, I would echo that, James. You know, to me, it was the degrees, right? I thought I had to go get the bachelor's, I had to go get the master's, and that's what was going to protect me. In reality, one of the things that one of my students said when I worked in higher education is during that iteration of Black Lives Matter happening in the world, she said, this degree from Harvard is not bulletproof. It won't stop those bullets from entering into my body. And so I'm doing all these things and doing these judo flips in order to protect myself from, how the world sees me, but actually it isn't. And it's not until I looked in the mirror and could see, the amazingness that I am, that's what really began to create the emotional protection that allowed me to navigate this world exactly as I am.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, I see the color of my skin as a beautiful additive to anything, any place, any space. And I think it is the role of us as individuals to find what that means to each of us individually in whatever way that means for you intersectionally, right? Because again, we talk about this not monolithic, right? Like for you to live in that and to continue to spread joy around that and not be ashamed around that. And I think that is, part of what we're doing here today, right? It is like continuing to celebrate that. And, the color of our skin, it's who we were made to be. And there's so much greatness in being made in this skin color. And it is living that and ensuring that our future generations can live an even better life than what we have right now. That is what I think being in this skin means.
Right. To me, it's seeing this as a gift, because the world has projected, us as being cursed from a certain extent. And me using me in this platform as a gift to show the world that it just, when you're backed by a source and a divine power, all that don't even matter. It
Absolutely.
Don't matter.
You
Absolutely.
stay true to the gift. Sometimes the issue is we allow the achievements, we allow the money, we allow the nice house, we allow the BMW and Mercedes to cloud that gift because it feels oh so great.
Yes.
But the gift that will make you great, that'll unravel that greatness to illuminate your path forward. But we have to first accept the gift. And I accept my gift.
Well said.
So in that gift, I want us, we're coming to a close and I want us to, traditionally with ThinkHuman, we want takeaways, right? And I think there's so many takeaways. And what I've heard is that these affirmations are very powerful to the Black community. We rely on them, we need them, we recite them. These affirmations were traditionally told to us by our grandparents and our elders and our families of like, let me tell you something to take away with, a message for you to go ahead and walk whatever journey you're gonna walk. These are what these affirmations mean, and this is what they're rooted in. They're not just words on a paper. They are something that is woven into us to give us the fuel we need to move through the earth, move through the space. And I want to kind of bring it back full circle. All people are asking questions like, what do managers do? How do we help? Like, recognize the amount of work it takes to show up at work from a 9 to 5 and have to process all of this and do work. So with that, I want us all to just take a moment, maybe 45 seconds each. What would you like your ancestors to know about how you're doing? And what is a message you want to share with your future generation? Go ahead, Lynette. I'm gonna start with you.
Well, luckily I just did this on Saturday, so I am ready for this, LaToya. I would like to say I am thankful. I am grateful for the struggle, for the perseverance, for the love, I am thankful for the lessons, for the history that they have made. And what I want them to know is that I am leaving with them the trauma that has been wired to not allow me to be free to live in my purpose and receive my gifts, and thank them for the gifts that I will be giving our future generation. And that is what I want everyone to remember, and what I want to thank my ancestors for.
Anybody else?
I can go. I would want to say that I'm thankful for the work that they've done and see all of it. I mean, all of it, all the pain, all the struggle, all the sacrifice, all the hurt, all the nastiness of it, right? And the beauty that was given in the baton they passed to us, and I tried to carry the baton in my purpose. And there's a quote I sent the other day. I sent a thing called a Success Thought of the Day every day. And this quote says it so well. When God wants to grow a squash, he grows it in one summer. But when he wants to grow an oak, he takes a century. And I'm prayerful that the work I'm doing stands for centuries.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow. Wow.
Go ahead. Okay.
No, please.
Okay. This, and I don't know why I'm like getting emotional on this, but
Me too. Me too.
so spiritual. But I'm thankful. I'm thankful because their journey gave me freedom. I'm thankful because the lessons that they learned didn't have a book to it. And so it just reveals to me that the knowledge that we seek isn't always on pages. I'm thankful because, I'm sorry, y'all.
That's all right, bro.
Breathe through it. Breathe through it.
Yes.
Breathe through it.
But this courage, it can't be wiped away. This ability to stand tall, even though sometimes your knees may buckle, and to rise up and conquer my greatness.
Yeah. You know, for me, there's two quotes that one quote that comes from one of Maya Angelou's poems. I think it's To Our Grandmothers or For Our Grandmothers, and it's, I come as one, but I stand as 10,000. And so my ancestors, you know, recognizing that I am here and have been able to achieve what I've been able to achieve because of the sacrifices that they made so long ago to pioneer the journey towards liberation. And so that quote, I actually have it tattooed on my arm to always remind myself that, like, yeah, you're here. You're the one that owns the home and owns the car and owns the, you know, and has the degrees, but you are standing on the work and the pain of so many people who made it possible for you to be able to make it there. And to the future generation, you know, with the passing of John Lewis and just, you know, his legacy and the idea of getting into good trouble, I would tell them, keep getting into good trouble. Keep using your voice, keep pushing against the status quo, you know, keep doing what needs to be done to keep furthering the work that our ancestors did, that we are doing, and that you will now take up as you enter into your own life.
Yeah.
So in bringing us all together, I want to guide us into a very short meditation. And I want all of our participants to also be a part of this, because so much information has happened today. And I want us to kind of get real centered on that. So with your permission, would you all like to join in? Okay. All right. Okay, so I'm gonna ask everyone to find a comfortable position where you can relax and breathe easily. Start by noticing your breath. Focus on filling your belly when you inhale and notice it empty when you exhale. Scan your body. And while continuing on your breathing, allow any tensions or discomforts to dissolve with your next few exhales. While you continue to breathe, allow your mind to take you to a safe, comfortable place. Just allow it to happen. The place may be familiar or new. If you hear something that makes you uncomfortable, go ahead and just change that image. When you find this special place, take a few moments to notice what you see. Look around you. Are you outside? Are you inside? What surrounds you? Also notice what you hear. If you're outside in your special place, notice if you hear water or animals. If you're inside, notice what sounds are in place. Now take a moment and notice how this place feels. Is it warm or cold? What kind of surface are you sitting or lying on? What are the textures of the clothes that you are wearing? How does it feel on your body in this place? Take a moment and notice that there are any tastes or smells with this place. Perhaps the smell of grass, outdoors, indoors. Now take some more moments and be totally present and safe in your place. Notice your senses. Think about your ancestors, your grands, great-grands, and beyond. Remember a story that was told to you as a child or an adolescent or an adult. Think about a piece of furniture that reminds you of them, jewelry, or even a photograph. Allow yourself to connect with that memory and breathe. While you sit in that memory, many of you will be filled with joy and feeling the strength of your ancestors. Some of you might not be entirely proud of what your ancestors might have done. As we all unite in breath, let us make all of our ancestors proud and make a decision to be a part of a new history. As we are turning at a turning point of generations to come, always remember that this place you can visit whatever you need to feel safe. Focus on what you need to do to honor our ancestors. And all you need to do is take a few deep breaths to get to this place. Now, start to become aware of what's around you. Slowly open your eyes when you're ready. And get present. I want to thank all of you panelists for being here. Thank you for sharing your stories. I want to thank ThinkHuman. I want to thank 15.5. And I want to thank everybody all around the world. You have an opportunity to go and create a version of this self in the world. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Right.